I'm Eleanor Skovgaard. I've been working at White Oak Pastures for just over 2 years now. Tiny house idea just came. It actually was because they had bought a property for a new cattle employee who was moving from, I think, Maine at the time. And then there was just a little kind of rundown shed on that property. It was 12 by 24, 12 feet by 24 feet. We were like, yeah, we could convert this into a living area. We treated that as sort of the prototype. So that's where the idea came from. I came here because I wanted to learn more about livestock management and regenerative agriculture. And I've had a lot of opportunities to do that, which has been really great. And then I also was able to kind of fulfill a need that White Oak had. I came here with certain, skills and a knowledge base from my earlier career, and so I ended up being able to fulfill a role for White Oak that they kind of needed. We've often been short on housing. A lot of interns will come through and they might want to stay on full time, but we don't have anywhere for them to live. Or someone local wants to work here and live here, but there's not anywhere they could buy or rent to live here with their family. So with Bluffton kind of expanding, it's kind of a place on the map. More and more people are wanting to come here and live here, and so we had to figure out some solutions to find places for those people to live. It was a couple seasons before we got around to doing it. I was pretty excited. Home renovation at that point was kind of my wheelhouse, so I felt pretty comfortable about doing it on a small scale, so that wasn't too challenging. The material is like an MDF, which I like. It's easier for me, it's faster and cheaper than drywall. This is all PVC instead, same style, but that way if it gets wet, it's totally fine. I like it and I prefer working with it over drywall. Probably the most challenging aspect was, the nearest Home Depot is an hour away. I don't want to spend all that time driving. It makes it a little more difficult to get things delivered. So just finding the stuff that we need and trying to coordinate deliveries, and anyone who's ever, especially, messed with plumbing, it's like, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna put this sink in, but then you need to go to the hardware store 6 times to get the right pieces. And when the hardware store is an hour away, that really sucks. So that kind of changed the kind of convenience level of just going to get what you need as you need it. But that like philosophy has always been true on the farm. We always do what we can do on the farm in kind of a little bit of a self-sufficient bubble as much as possible. And then when you've exhausted your resources on farm, then you have to run to town and grab something. For the layout, what I did was I just took some graph paper and I made a little to scale drawing of the floor plan of the house itself, the shed itself, and where the certain things are fixed, like the location of the door and the windows. And then I used that and I just drew out to scale as many kind of permutations and combinations of, oh, what if I put the bathroom over here? And oh, what if we do a corner shower? And oh, all this and that. Until I had, multiple possibilities. And then, I picked the one that I thought was the best, was the most workable. It's honestly not that different in most cases doing a tiny house compared to a full-size house. In a lot of ways, it's actually easier because the scale is smaller. When you're doing plumbing and electrical, you're often in cramped spaces anyways. You're always trying to strike the balance between, what is the most economic option that is still a decent and livable space for someone to be in. And a lot of the properties just around here are, older and run down. But given, the financial kind of limitations that we're trying to achieve, it's still important to me to make a space that is aesthetically pleasing and cozy and I think I accomplished that. There's some stuff I probably would have changed. There's definitely mistakes I made that, having made them, I've learned a smarter way to go about the problem. Because it was the prototype and because it was my first time, I really through everything. I had everything planned out down to the tiniest little detail, and it was easy to be able to execute in that way. It's like with anything else, the more you do it, the more confident you get, and the easier it is to figure stuff out on the fly. Definitely watch YouTube videos, pretty much any technical aspect, whether it's big or small. If you're not sure, you can find good quality information on there, which is to say that you don't have to be an expert to do any of these things. And so don't be intimidated by feeling of not knowing or not being good enough to try and do something. Fundamentally, whether it's farming or building a house, these are things that humans have been doing for thousands of years. Your ancestors just like chopped trees down and carved them up and like built a house, and they didn't go to college for that. They figured it out, and I think the ability to do that is inherent pretty much in any human being. And especially if it's something that you care about, you can find a way to do it, to your own satisfaction, to your own standards. So I would apply that to any passion project that you care about, but you're like, oh, well, I'm not a carpenter, so I can't build a house, or oh, I'm not a farmer, so I can't raise animals. Those really are kind of self-limiting beliefs, and there's no way that you gain an expert level of understanding in these contexts without just getting into it and doing it. No amount of book reading, I would argue, can teach you how to handle a cow in the field, or design a space that serves a function and makes you feel the way you want to feel about your own home. So basically, yeah, I think people should just go for it and not be afraid to make mistakes, and recognize that those mistakes are just opportunities for learning. With this second one, I'm a little more confident because I've gone through the same process before. The layout is very similar.